Welcome, NFL football fans. It's that time again. Time for another edition of NFL Football Talk. I'm your host, Charles E. Smith Jr., and Week 17 is complete, and we're just about to go into the playoffs. Wild Card weekend starts, which would be a fantastic tournament of a total of 11 games to discover a champion. 4 games this weekend, 4 games the next weekend, then 2 on championship, and then wait a couple of weeks and we got Super Bowl 50. It's all winding down. So let's go ahead and take a look at everything, see who might get there, who should get there, who would get there, who won't get there. So I'm going to go ahead and bring in my main man here because I can't break everything down alone, as everybody knows here. So I only enlist the best, and here he is from a secure but rainy location here as these El Nino storms hit in Southern California. Some of you already follow him on Twitter at Chris L Sports, and if not, you should be. None other than Chris Lardieri. Chris, what's happening out there, man? You staying dry?
Charles, I am. As we speak, the rain's coming down again. We're on El Nino Watch 16. It's all over the news. It's all over the radio, the internet, social media. My dad back in New Jersey called to make sure I didn't get washed away in a flood, but through like the U.S. Postal Service, we still truck on, right, even through this monsoon. But great to be here. Happy New Year.
Yeah, right back at you. This is our first show of 2016, and you know, if you're looking for a new job here in the new year, you might want to consider being an NFL head coach. Although it does pay well, there's not much job security. You can, in fact, even choose your climate where you'd like to coach, because the Philadelphia Eagles, the New York Giants, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the San Francisco 49ers, Miami Dolphins, Cleveland Browns, and the Tennessee Titans are all looking for guys to take charge there. But, you know, before we get into who might go where as far as the coaching, we got to talk about a few things that, situations that are kind of strange. One is, well, Sean Payton with a really strange news conference saying that he was staying in New Orleans. But you got to look at the whole thing in Indianapolis. And I got to compare it with Miami, because in Miami, the new GM, Chris Greer, said all the talk of dysfunction in Miami is over. Well, it may not be over, but it's going to be overshadowed by the talk of dysfunction in Indianapolis, where Chuck Pagano, who turned down a contract extension last season, actually somehow signed one this year when all signs pointed to him leaving. And the owner, Jim Irsay, the pill-popping owner, he signs Pagano and Ryan Grigson, the GM, all to contract extension. So I guess they're just one big happy family all of a sudden. What do you think there, Chris?
I have no idea. Nothing Jim Irsay does seems to make any sense. You know, every so-called NFL expert said that Pagano was a goner. It was just a matter of whether it would be Monday or Tuesday. He and Grigson didn't get along this year. Irsay was interjecting throughout the season, and then they're all back. And I mean, this is going to make for one great soap opera. I propose that the Colts should be on Hard Knocks this coming summer, because this could make for some fascinating reality television. I really have no answer for you. I mean, good for Chuck Pagano. He stuck his neck out on the line. A lot of it was not his fault. Much like the Giants, the GM did not put a good defense on the field, and Andrew Luck was running for his life, got seriously hurt this season, and its team still managed to go 8-8, winning the last game with the likes of quarterbacking legends Ryan Lindley and Josh Freeman, and gotta give him credit for that at the very least. But if you ask me, I think it'll be a hot mess even into 2016.
And then how about the Cleveland Browns, who, when you talk about just a mess, now they've hired Paul DePodesta, who, you know, was the force behind Moneyball. I mean, I know many of you saw that. That was about Paul DePodesta. So he is now their new chief analytics or chief strategy officer, I believe that's the title that he has there in Cleveland. So I guess it's up to this baseball guy to return this NFL franchise to prominence. Well, let's say relevance. Let's not say prominence. Relevance. Let's go with that first.
Yeah, this one makes absolutely no sense, even before this hiring. And for those of you who don't know, the Jonah Hill played a character supposedly based on Paul DePodesta when he worked with the A's. Right. But essentially, Jimmy Haslam, who might be getting up there with Jim Irsay in terms of wackiness and organizational structure, said that they're really they were going to hire a coach before they hired a GM, promoted the capologist to kind of oversee everything, and say that the coach would have a say in personnel matters as well with this capologist, and then said, well, we're going to hire a GM, but he basically sounded like it would be someone who reported to them in, I don't know, scouting personnel. I really don't know. It made no sense. A day later, we find out it's Paul DePodesta, and apparently they're going to try to bring analytics to the NFL, which, hey, I give them credit. It hasn't been done. They're looking for inefficiencies, but this is the Browns, and you got to get yourself a quality coach, and you've got to get rid of the headache that's Johnny Manziel. There's a lot of work to do, and I'm skeptical at best.
Yeah, definitely. And then speaking of skeptical, that leads us into our next thing, which is, okay, so officially all three teams have filed. So the Oakland Raiders, the San Diego Chargers, and the St. Louis Rams all want to come to Los Angeles, and I guess there's going to be a huge vote next week to see who goes where, if anybody goes, but I've got a feeling this time it's going to happen.
Something's going to happen.
Yeah.
Now, who it will be, we don't know. I was talking about it with a few people recently about who I think it will be and how it unfolded. Roger Goodell, our favorite whipping boy, really, I mean, could it be any murkier, this whole thing? It has to come to a vote. We hear there are two factions, the ones that are siding with the Spanos family in San Diego, the newer guard of owners that are siding with Stan Kroenke and his Inglewood project, then one of the Jerry Richardson, who's clearly siding with the Chargers, somehow gets Bob Iger of Disney on board behind the Carson project. And it's typical Goodell, he runs it like it's some sort of street gang or mob, and doesn't really follow procedures. He just wants a team in LA come hell or high water, much like how he wanted to get even with the Patriots, and we had the Flakegate, and typical Goodell. And I think it would be funny if we reach some sort of stalemate, and then we go back to old-fashioned backroom bargaining and what else. I don't know. Charles, we've been saying all along we thought it would be the Rams. They played in LA for 46 years. Kroenke's got the money. He's got the property in Inglewood. I think it would make more sense. I really don't see the Chargers having a fan base here, and regardless, I think the Raiders are probably going to be left out of the cold and have a shotgun marriage of some sort by moving into Levi's Stadium with the 49ers. But what do I know? Because no one really knows anything, and all the experts thought Chuck Pagano would be out on the unemployment line this week.
Yeah, that's true. And to me, the Oakland moving into the stadium and sharing the stadium with the 49ers just makes the most sense, doesn't it? How does that not?
Yeah, absolutely.
How does that not happen?
And the Jets have done it in the Meadowlands for well over 20 years, well over 30 years now. So it can be done. And look, there's a fan base for the Raiders up in Oakland. I know there are fans down here in Southern California, but they come and they support their team. You can say what you want about the Raiders; they've got very loyal fans, and I think they deserve to play in a nicer stadium.
Yeah, I think so. So, everybody, so this past weekend, week 17, the New York Jets, I think in typical New York Jets fashion, that's why I haven't heard any Jets fans even complaining that they went out there and laid an egg against the Buffalo Bills when that's all they had to do to get into the playoffs. They take down the Patriots a week before, and then the game that they could win easily, they lose to the Buffalo Bills, thus allowing the Pittsburgh Steelers to thump on the Browns, and the Steelers get in instead of the Jets, but kind of typical New York Jets fashion.
Absolutely. Ryan Fitzpatrick, the darling of New York for most of the year, talks of contract extension. They found their quarterback, throws 3 interceptions, and I can't fault them for all of them. The wind was pretty brutal up there. I really don't even know why in the first place Shane Gailey abandoned Chris Ivory and tried to have Fitzpatrick throw into that wind, but regardless, it happened. It's typical Jets. I've got friends who are Jets fans, and they all kind of had this sense of impending doom, so I guess it lessened the blow. But even still, to lose to Rex Ryan really just rubbed salt into the wound. Yeah,
that's true, and it really kind of messed up our pick segment last week because looked like we'd both have a pretty decent week. And then it turns out Denver came up off the mat, too. They came back. Peyton Manning's back in, so I guess we'll see who starts in Denver. They have the bye week coming. But getting into the pick segment, last week I went 3-2. Mr. Lardieri, you went 2-3. However, you get the regular season crown. You beat me by 6 games. So congratulations to you I tip my hat to you, Mr. Lardieri. You are fantastic.
Oh, why, thank you. Well, I'm not a genius. You just had too much faith in the Giants for probably 5 of those 6 weeks.
I think so. So let's go ahead and get into the games of this week. Now, they've got it divided up, so they're going to have the AFC playing on Saturday, and then the NFC games are going to take place on Sunday. So the very first of the AFC matchups, Kansas City Chiefs, who they beat the Texans 27-20 in week 1 of the NFL season. Then they proceeded to lose 5 straight games, then win 10 straight games coming into the playoffs here. They're going to be in Houston to play the Texans, who were in that horribly mediocre AFC South, but the Texans did win their last 3 games. They're all division opponents, but you know how that division is. So you can go ahead on this one, Chris. What do you think? And also, Justin Houston is a good rushing linebacker. He's been out with a leg injury for the last 5 games. He says he's going to play for the Kansas City Chiefs, so that gives them a little extra something there, too, to make whomever starts at quarterback there in Houston more uncomfortable, whether it's Brian Hoyer or Brandon Weeden or any of the 4 starting quarterbacks they had win games for him this year. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Chiefs. I mean, clearly the hottest team in football. I like the way Alex Smith has finally figured out how to throw vertical passes this year. Mm-hmm. You hear a lot of teams talk about how they had injuries. I mean, the Chiefs were decimated by injuries, especially with Jamal Charles going out, and they kept on chugging. They kept plugging in the likes of Sharkandrick West in at running back, and they just keep winning. And, I think that the Texans are a great story, but too many questions at quarterback. I think this could potentially be a low-scoring snoozer of a game, but I think the Chiefs will do just enough to win, and I really think I admire the Texans defense, but on the offensive side of the ball, I don't trust whoever plays QB against the Chiefs D.
Yeah, I got to go with you on that, and that was the interesting story too, was that in weeks, I believe it was 4 and 5, they lost them 1 week apart, where the Chiefs lose Jamal Charles, and then the Texans lose Arian Foster. I think Jamal Charles was an ACL, and then Foster was an Achilles, or vice versa. No, Foster was an Achilles. So, yeah, I think so too. I think it's going to be, the elements won't play a part because they're going to be playing in Houston there, so they won't be out against the elements in Arrowhead Stadium. But, I got to go with the Chiefs on this one as well. And even though Alex Smith has not, I don't think he's ever won a playoff game, has he? I don't believe so. But
he did with the 49ers. I believe that, I think that game against the Saints, that great back and forth game a number of years ago.
I remember that game. I think that was when the Saints, right after they won the Super Bowl, I think.
Yeah, I think it was the following year, and they knocked. Yeah, they knocked him out, and then of course in the NFC Championship against the Giants, he couldn't get the ball in the end zone, and then a year later Kaepernick comes in. But yeah, we'll give him credit. He won 1 game.
Okay, so yeah, I think, but that front 7 of the Texans, they're going to have to really get after him. That's really the only way they have a chance there. But I'm going to go ahead with the Chiefs. And Andy Reid, we all have our reservations about him coaching in big games, but there's experience factor working there for KC, so I'm going to go ahead and take KC as well. We'll be in agreement on that first game.
It's about time in the new year.
Okay. And then the next game, and here you've got caveats abound. Okay, the Pittsburgh Steelers in Cincinnati to play the division rival Bengals. They split the season series this year. Pittsburgh won in Cincinnati. Cincinnati won in Pittsburgh. Now they come into this game both with different sets of injury problems. Now the Steelers, they lost Le'Veon Bell early in the year in the game against Cincinnati. Then, just last game of the season against Cleveland, they lose D'Angelo Williams. All signs point to D'Angelo Williams not playing, so it looks like they're going to have to go through the air to get it done. Then on the other side, you got Cincinnati, who Andy Dalton, as we know, threw a very weak interception, then broke his thumb making a tackle. So A.J. McCarron has been the man. Actually, he hurt his wrist, but I think he's okay. So what we've got is Pittsburgh with no running game versus Cincinnati with probably A.J. McCarron at quarterback or Andy Dalton with a broken thumb at quarterback. I think A.J. McCarron at quarterback is about the equivalent of Dalton with a fractured thumb. and there's going to be heavy rain. So that makes it hard to go vertical with your game. But that said, I'm going to go with the quarterback who has been to 3 Super Bowls and won 2 of them. That's Ben Roethlisberger, the Pittsburgh Steelers. The coach has been there. Marvin Lewis still has not won a playoff game, the coach of the Bengals. So I think all signs kind of point to a mini catastrophe there in Ohio, and I got to go with the Steelers on this one. What do you think there, Chris?
We're going to disagree for the first time this year. I like your analysis, but that said, the Steelers can throw the ball all they want, whether it's in the rain or not, but they still have no defense. And while A.J. McCarron really doesn't scare anyone, at least he's gotten comfortable with the offense. They've got a well-balanced attack. They've got receivers to throw to, tight ends. They can run the ball. I think it could be some sort of a slugfest, but at the end of the day, I think the Bengals will do just enough to neutralize. There's this receiver on the Steelers. His name's Antonio Brown. A lot of their opponents down the stretch kind of forgot about him, and he had ridiculous, 200-yard games with multiple touchdowns. I don't see that happening this week. Hoping for a close, good game, the primetime game on Saturday night, but for some reason, I just think this is the Bengals' year. My gut says Marvin Lewis is going to get off the schneid and get a win.
Okay, we'll see. And who would ever thought that it would have taken him starting a backup quarterback to get his first playoff win,
Yeah, I guess on a technicality, we can say it's because Andy Dalton wasn't starting that Marvin Lewis got his win.
Okay, and then, I think one of the keys is going to be Pittsburgh, if they can strike first early, put the Bengals down 10-0, 14-0 or something like that, and take them out of that. I thought about that run game of the Bengals. I think it's going to be important for the Steelers to get an early lead and make it so that they can't do the ground and pound thing and make A.J. McCarron beat them through the air. I think that'll be key for them. And Ben's got to cut down on those interceptions. I saw a few that he threw these last couple of weeks, which were just unconscionable. They were Vinny Testaverde-like.
Wow, really? That's good analogy. I like it, going back a little ways. But yeah, I think ultimately what really led me to sway to the Bengals as well is just, I know the Steelers beat the Browns last week, but for a good portion of that game, they really couldn't put them away. And then the Ravens' banged-up defense, the job they did against the Steelers 2 weeks ago caused me to worry. I'm not an expert. I just play one here on Inside Sports TV.
Okay, so there we go. We kind of disagree on that one. So now let's jump over to the NFC, where we've got the Minnesota Vikings. They're going to be entertaining the Seattle Seahawks. Of course, the Seattle Seahawks a few weeks ago just beat them down unmercifully in Minnesota. But this time, we got the elements. For the first time since 1976, there's going to be an outdoor playoff game in Minnesota. We all remember, those of us who are old enough, we remember Fran Tarkenton, Bud Grant standing on the sidelines, the cold stare of Bud Grant, the breath coming out into the air. But the temperature in Minnesota is supposed to be 1 degree. That will be the high for the day. 1 degree. Wind chill is going to take it down easily below 0. So weather could be a factor here with the Seahawks as they go in there. Marshawn Lynch is going to be back. But, coming off the abdominal injury, but he took full reps this week, so he'll be ready. One thing, though, the cold can make injuries tighten up a little bit. But will they be as tight as the Minnesota Vikings offense? What do you think here, Chris? How do you see this one?
I'm going to go with the Vikings. I like the way they're playing. I know the Seahawks spanked them there earlier this year, but a couple things come into play for me here with this pick. I think Teddy Bridgewater is doing just enough to win games. He doesn't have to win them by himself. He's got basically the best running back in football. Adrian Peterson won another rushing title at his disposal. And that defense has really come around. You look at what they did to Aaron Rodgers last week in Green Bay. Combine that with the fact, as you said, the frozen tundra of what is it now?
Golden
University
Gopher
of Minnesota,
Stadium,
Golden Gopher Stadium, right? Not the old Met, but close enough. And I think the Seahawks, when they have lost this year, have had problems with defenses like the Rams or the Panthers that can rush the passer. The holes are in the Seahawks offensive lines, and if you have to rush Wilson and force him to throw, bad things happen. While I'm impressed that Marshawn Beast Mode's coming back to play, a lot of weeks off from playing in that cold against that defense, I don't think they're going to do a heck of a lot. And I think, going to stick with my August prediction. I thought the Vikings would go to the playoffs and maybe go in a week or two deep, and I'm going to stick with that.
Okay, well, I like the Vikings all around also, but I got to go with experience here. And if we look at the Seahawks, and I think they started off, 2-4 this year, and now as they came down the stretch, 6-1 in the last 7 games. So to me, the Seahawks, they're just, when it comes down to it, they play just like a pack of junkyard dogs. So I got to go with the Seahawks to get something done. And even if Lynch can't go, I trust Christian Michael to carry the ball, and Russell Wilson making plays. And it's the same thing as I said with Cincinnati. If Minnesota falls into an early hole, if they get them down, get them down 7-10-0 or something, make them play catch up, it's going to spell doom. But anyways, I think this is going to be a dogfight, and I pick Seattle in a dogfight at this point, more so than I would Minnesota. To me, Minnesota, they're not at that stage of development yet. Maybe next year or the year after, but right now, Seattle is still the big dog in the yard, so I'm going to go with them.
Well, regardless, one thing's for sure, Charles, we'll get to see Pete Carroll and all his annoying animated faces and whining to the refs in the freezing cold. I don't think we've ever seen those reactions, so I'm looking forward to it.
There we go. And then the final game on Sunday, that'll be the Green Bay Packers, who lost the NFC North title for the first time in 4 years when the Vikings took it. The Packers are going to be in Washington to play the Redskins. The Redskins started off, really horribly. And then at one point they were, 5-7 in a really mediocre division. They won their last 4 games. They're in, won the NFC East. They have a home playoff game now. So I just, when I look at the Packers, here I'll tell you what the problem is with the Packers. I look at them, and it reminds me of, we all play in rec leagues here, those of us who like sports, and we're just mortals, so we don't play professionally. The Packers remind me of that one team that doesn't have a lot of good players, but they got a ringer on their team, so they're hard to beat. That ringer is Aaron Rodgers. Now, Washington is a more complete team. I look at the way they're playing, both sides of the ball, the weakness of the Packers receivers, the problems on the offensive line. I think Washington, I got to go with them and Kirk Cousins. They're coming into their own. I like Washington to take down the Packers in this game. What do you think, man?
I like that we're going to disagree yet again.
All
While
right.
all sides point to a colossal choke job by the Packers, at least for this week, I don't see it. While I'm impressed that the Redskins turned it around with a lot of controversy heading into the season. Gruden went out on a limb and named Cousins a starting quarterback, and it paid off. But having watched a number of NFC East games this season, you need to realize the Redskins didn't beat a team with a winning record. While
That's
they did
true.
win down the stretch, they really beat some, part of my French, piss-poor teams. And as bad as the Packers are playing, when Aaron Rodgers is down and everyone counts him out, he always seems to turn it around. And
Yeah.
I know the Cardinals spanked them. That was a rough game. But that Vikings game was winnable. There was some questionable play calling. They ran out of timeouts at the end of the game. The Vikings kind of let them hang around, and I don't see Aaron Rodgers losing to the Redskins. I think James Starks or Eddie Lacy will wake up and be able to run the ball in this defense. Don't put a gun to my head and ask me who, because you never know from week to week. And maybe James Jones, the man Jerry Reese with the Giants didn't think was worthy enough of wearing the hoodie with the blue Giants uniform. Maybe he'll catch a touchdown in his green hoodie. There's a prediction for you. But I'm going to go with the Pack. I just think that for whatever reason, my gut tells me I'm going to go with experience, the experienced quarterback, and the experienced coach.
Okay, well, we shall see. The other thing is, when I look at the turmoil of the Packers, you have Mike McCarthy, who gave up the offensive play calling to start the season. Then he takes it back about 4 games ago, and it didn't lead to any more success. So to me, it just leads me to believe there's a lot of confusion on the offense. And Aaron Rodgers, like I said, he's that ringer. Still the best quarterback in the league. He's the X factor. If they are to win this game, Rodgers is going to have to be spectacular. And yeah, that ground game is really going to have to, either Starks or Lacy, they're going to have to run for over 100 yards, guaranteed, for the Packers to have a chance here. But I see Washington as a more complete team, even though they beat a bunch of really bad teams this year.
Yeah, and I think the only bad thing about this game is John Gruden can't call it, so he can pretend to be objective about his little brother.
Okay, there we go, everybody. So just taking a recap here. In the Kansas City playing in Houston, we're both going with the Chiefs. And then in the second game of the day on Saturday, the Steelers in Cincinnati to play the Bengals. We split on that. Mr. Lardieri is going with the Bengals. I'm going with the Steelers. And then when we get to Sunday, the Seahawks in Minnesota to play the Vikings. Mr. Lardieri is going with the Vikings. I am taking the Seahawks. And then the last game of the weekend, Green Bay Packers in Washington to play the Redskins. Mr. Lardieri goes with the Packers and the experience. I'm going with the Redskins, being the more complete of the two teams. So that wraps it up for the pick segment this week. Remember, we'll be back next week for the divisional round, which will be fantastic. We'll have the 4 teams that got byes, and that is in the AFC, the Denver Broncos and the New England Patriots. And then in the NFC, the Carolina Panthers and the Arizona Cardinals will be awaiting the winners this weekend, and we'll see how everything plays out. But before we go, Mr. Lardieri, we love your nuggets of wisdom. What have you got for us this week?
Two things. First, real quick, right before the show started, the Buccaneers fired Lovie Smith. Mm-hmm. I don't know why or how, but leave the Buccaneers to shock us all yet again. That said, the most talked about coaching change this week, my beloved New York Giants. While I've been saying all along I thought Coughlin would go, I know there were close games and they could have been 10-6 and so on and so forth. If I hit the lottery, I could have been a millionaire too. I feel bad the way it went down. I'm not surprised that it did. I think it was time for a change. I think ultimately Mara and Tisch put a gun to his head and told him, resign and we'll pay you your last year. The thing that infuriates me and leaves me just dumbfounded is how Jerry Reese, as general manager, keeps his job. Right. John Mara got up there in the press conference, praised Coughlin, and then talked about I didn't have the players, but Reese's job was safe. Reese had the brass cojones to get up there later and get combative with reporters and essentially say his team had a lot of injuries this year, which makes me laugh. Every team has injuries.
Right.
And how this guy gets to keep his job, I don't know. The Giants like to say they like continuity and loyalty. Well, you just threw your 2 Super Bowl winning coach out on the street, but you keep the GM who created this mess. So I really don't know. And, now they're all talking about how Ben McAdoo needs to be the coach because Eli did well in his offense, and he's going to have to learn another new offense. Look, I love Eli. I'm glad he won 2 Super Bowls from my favorite team. But, they're paying you somewhere in the neighborhood of $100 million. I think you can pick the offense up regardless of who it is in the offseason. One name I'm going to throw out there, kind of been mentioned here and there. I don't know why. I don't have any fact or sources on this. Mm-hmm. Doug Marrone, former Bills coach, former Syracuse coach. I think he's going to get an interview. Keep an eye on him. I think he could be a dark horse candidate. Mm-hmm. And from a backup quarterback perspective, here's something to keep in mind. Ryan Massib was his quarterback at Syracuse, and we all know how important it is to develop a backup quarterback in this league now. So maybe that'll be the ultimate selling point for Marrone. But I don't know if he'll get the job, but I think that's just something to keep an eye on. And then part of me as a fan thinks I really have nothing against Ben McAdoo, but I'm not sure if he's head coaching material.
Yep, there we go, and we shall see. And then maybe next week we can debate a little bit about the Hall of Fame possibilities for Tom Coughlin and also for Eli Manning. The only other quarterback to win 2 Super Bowls and not get in the Hall of Fame is Jim Plunkett. So we'll see if Manning is headed down that path as well. But for this week, everybody, thank you for joining us. Remember, catch us right here, whether you're watching on YouTube or on Vimeo. I'm Charles E. Smith, Jr. You can follow me on Twitter at TheInsideSports. You can follow Mr. Lardieri on Twitter at Chris L. Sports. So for Mr. Lardieri, thank you for watching NFL Football Talk. This is an Inside Sports production, and we'll see everybody next week.